Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, well, we're digging into a really big one. Christian Horner's exit from Red Bull. Very expensive, very complex.
Yeah, it's definitely captured a lot of attention, hasn't it?
Absolutely. And we've got a good stack of research here, really diving into the contract details, the money, his future. This comes from some great analysis shared by the channel Lord Zone, actually.
Right. They did some good work pulling the threads together.
So our mission today, for you listening, is kind of threefold. First, how did this departure end up costing something like $100 million? An estimated figure, of course.
It's a huge number.
Huge. Second, why did it drag on, like nearly 2 months between him being sidelined and the official news?
That gap was interesting.
And third, maybe the most interesting bit, where does he go next? What kind of F1 team setup actually works for a guy who, by his own admission, needs complete control?
That's the real $1 million question, or maybe $100 million question here.
Yeah, exactly. We're really looking at the price of, well, organizational freedom for Red Bull, and maybe the blueprint for Horner's big comeback. Okay, let's unpack it. And yeah, we have to start with that payout. Just, wow.
It is an eye-watering figure, absolutely. And, you know, in the budget cap era, it just screams, why? Red Bull, they're known for being aggressive, right?
Yeah.
On track, definitely. But it seems they were just as aggressive getting this break sorted.
Yeah, the official line was all amicable, but you sense the negotiations weren't exactly smooth sailing, starting right after the British Grand Prix.
Pretty much immediately, yeah.
So the figure we're hearing is around $100 million. And that's supposedly to cover his contract, which ran until, what, the end of 2030?
That's right, a long-term deal.
But, okay, even for a top team principal, does that number really track? I mean, is there some kind of massive penalty clause hidden in there, or something about the structure that just blew it up?
Well, that's the crucial part, isn't it? When you dig into the sources, you see the $100 million. It wasn't just for being the F1 team principal. That's almost misleading.
Okay. Horner's contract, it was multifaceted. A lot of his value, maybe even the majority financially speaking, was tied up in the non-racing parts of the business.
Ah, right. Like what specifically?
Okay, so first, he was chief of Red Bull Powertrains, the engine division. That's a massive undertaking, especially with the 2026 rules coming. Hugely critical.
Right, the engine side is enormous.
But maybe even bigger financially. He was head of Red Bull Advanced Technologies, RBAT. And that's not just, internal R&D for the F1 car.
Advanced technologies.
Yeah.
That's the external stuff, isn't it? The consultancy projects, high-value things like the Valkyrie hypercar with Aston Martin.
Exactly that.
Yeah.
And those kinds of projects, they carry potentially huge commissions, success bonuses, that kind of thing. If his contract tied his earnings to the revenue or, future profits of advanced technologies, which operates completely outside the F1 budget cap, by the way.
Outside the cap. Big detail. Massive detail. Then suddenly that $100 million figure starts to make a bit more sense, doesn't it? It's not just salary. It's salary, bonuses, potential commissions, all rolled together for someone who was effectively CEO across 3 major divisions.
Okay, that completely reframes it. So Red Bull wasn't just paying to get rid of their team boss.
Yeah.
They were paying to untangle this whole complex corporate structure underneath them, buying the freedom to reorganize everything.
That's exactly it. Once they decided, look, this partnership isn't working, and apparently that decision came fast after whatever happened around Silverstone paying out the contract was, well, the cost of doing business, the cost of avoiding a really messy public court fight.
A fight that could have dragged their reputation through the mud.
Precisely. So yeah, $100 million is huge, but maybe for them, the price of swift, clean closure was worth it.
Okay, but let's shift from the money for a sec. The timeline still feels a bit strange. If they wanted this clean break so badly, why the 2-month delay? Why wait from, say, July to September for the official word?
Yeah, that's where you see the corporate maneuvering, the contract leverage game. We need to look at the exact words they used back then. Horner wasn't sacked immediately.
Right. He was relieved of active duties. I remember that phrase.
Exactly. It sounds softer, but it's legally important. He was sidelined, yeah, but technically he was still an employee, still under that big contract.
So basically parked, like you said, like a driver stuck in the sim room.
Pretty much. And by keeping him on the payroll, even though he wasn't running the team day to day, Red Bull kept the upper hand. They made sure he couldn't just walk into a rival team the next day.
Okay. And crucially,
it likely meant he couldn't start earning another massive salary somewhere else while they were negotiating his exit package. That financial pressure point, that gives Red Bull leverage to shape the final settlement.
So the delay wasn't indecision, it was actually part of the strategy.
I think so, yeah. It was the time needed to hammer out the terms of that $100 million exit, the final cancellation of that long 2030 deal. It was all about managing the negotiation to get the result they wanted.
Right, and what's really interesting is that massive payment seems to have bought him his freedom quite quickly in return. We hear a lot about gardening leave in F1, people sidelined for years sometimes, but that's not the case here.
No, and that's a really key point for what happens next. From what we understand, he is not bound by a long gardening leave clause. He's allowed back into F1 work sometime next season.
Next season already. When exactly are we talking?
The word is he's basically free to negotiate right now. And he could realistically start a new role after those initial flyaway races next year. You know, Australia, China, Japan, Bahrain, Saudi. Those early ones, definitely before the summer break.
Wow, okay. That really throws the doors open, doesn't it? We can probably park some of the wilder rumors, like Cadillac's, their boss Dan Terrace, seemed to shut that down pretty firmly, backing his current principal.
Yeah, that one seems off the table.
So if he's potentially available mid-season next year, where does he realistically land? The two names that keep coming up are Alpine and Aston Martin.
Those seem like the most plausible, yes. But before we weigh them up, we have to think about Horner himself. What does he need?
Right. And he's been pretty clear about this in the past, hasn't he? That phrase, complete control.
Exactly. He said something like, the boss has to be in charge, not constantly answering to people above him. Needs to be fast, aggressive, make the calls.
He wants his fingers in all the pies, basically. Technical, marketing, the whole structure built around his vision.
And when you look at it through that lens, that need for total control, the Alpine scenario, well, it starts to look pretty compelling.
How so? Alpine feels like a bit of a mess right now.
It is undergoing a massive restructure, that's the point. They're dropping the Renault Works engine, they're going to be a Mercedes customer team for the next rules cycle starting 26. It's almost a blank slate.
Okay, a rebuild opportunity.
A total rebuild. And remember, Horner is apparently good friends with Flavio Briatore, who's back consulting for Alpine now.
Ah, the Briatore connection.
Yeah. A move to Alpine could offer Horner exactly that clean slate he craves. He could reshape the whole technical department, set the reporting lines, build it exactly how he wants, targeting those 2026 regulations.
And Briatore's comment was interesting too, wasn't it? Something like a non-denial denial.
Right, he said. At this moment, Christian isn't in Formula One. The key words being at this moment. It sort of implies, yeah, maybe next year is a different story.
Okay, that makes a strong case for Alpine. But hang on, what about Aston Martin? They've got huge resources, ambition, maybe a quicker path back to winning. Wouldn't that appeal more?
It's a fair point. The resources are tempting. But think about the structure there. Aston already has strong, established leaders. Andy Cowell as CEO, Mike Crack running the day-to-day race team. They're not likely to just step aside.
So he wouldn't get that complete control.
Probably not in the same way. Maybe they offer him a bigger picture role, overseeing things towards 2026, maybe something linking F1 and the road cars. But running the race team, making every call, he'd likely have to answer to Cowell, report upwards. It doesn't quite fit that complete control mantra as neatly as Alpine potentially does.
So the pain of an Alpine rebuild might actually be more attractive because it offers that total authority.
I think that's a very real possibility, yes. The organizational void at Alpine might just align perfectly with his known management philosophy.
And we can't talk about Horner's future without touching on Adrian Newey, can we? Given everything that happened and Newey also leaving Red Bull partly because of that situation.
Yeah.
If Horner gets a top job, could they actually work together again? Seems unlikely on the surface.
You know, I wouldn't rule it out completely. Yes, there were clearly tensions, conflict rumors, whatever you want to call it, but they achieved absolutely incredible success together. History's greatest hits. Really. Right. And apparently they still move in the same circles, have dinner, that kind of thing. F1 history is full of big personalities who've clashed and then reunited for success. If Horner sets up a project, say at Alpine, with a clear vision for 2026 and guarantees Newey creative freedom, well, stranger things have happened.
A potential reunion. Wow. Okay, so Horner's future is opening up. Meanwhile, back at Red Bull, that door is firmly shut. They paid the $100 million. They got their clean break. How significant is this closure for them moving into the Lauren Mickey's era?
Oh, it's absolutely crucial. Invaluable, really. Red Bull can finally properly draw a line under the Horner legacy day to day. That huge payment, it was the price they paid for organizational autonomy. It lets Mickey's put his own stamp on things, implement his philosophy without lingering political battles or loyalties to the old guard.
And we have seen a bit of an uptick recently, haven't we? 2 wins for Max Verstappen. Is that Mickey's making an immediate impact, or is Horner's legacy still paying off?
It's probably a bit of both, to be fair. You have to balance the credit. Horner absolutely left behind a brilliant car, a really strong engineering team. That's undeniable.
Yeah, the foundation was solid.
And interestingly, that big Monza upgrade, which definitely helped with those recent wins, apparently that was actually signed off and brought in by Horner at Silverstone right before he was sidelined. So his structural work is still delivering results.
Ah, okay. So the car's evolution was still partly on his watch.
Exactly. But what McKees is doing now is fundamentally shifting the way they work, the methodology. He's pushing what they're calling a risk-on approach.
Risk on. What does that mean in practice?
It's not just talk. It means deliberately stress testing the whole organization, pushing the engineers, the drivers, the sim team, trying unconventional setups, maybe some wild aero directions, things that might not work immediately.
But why risk things now when there's still the team to beat? Seems counterintuitive.
Because they need to find the absolute edges, the weaknesses, before the massive 2026 rule change hits. Especially with the new ground effect aero, it's going to be complex. Mickey's is basically using their current performance advantage as a safety net.
To allow for experimentation, even failure.
Exactly. He can afford to run experiments at races like Hungary or Monza, even if they don't quite work out, just to gather data to learn what breaks, what doesn't, before it really counts in 26. It's an aggressive approach, but it's only possible because he has that clean slate, that organizational freedom Horner's departure provided.
Right. No political need to just keep winning every single race above all else.
Precisely. He can focus on the long game.
So, wrapping this all up for you listening, this deep dive really shows, I think, the hidden complexities. That $100 million wasn't just a salary payout. It was tied to those other big roles, like advanced technologies. The 2-month delay wasn't hesitation. It was strategic leverage. And Horner's future. It hinges entirely on finding a team that will give him that complete control, which points maybe more towards a rebuild like Alpine.
Yeah, and connecting it all, that $100 million, it really was the price Red Bull paid for freedom. The freedom for Lauren Mekies to totally reset the leadership style, the methodology, get ready for the next big era in F1 without looking over his shoulder.
Okay, so here's a final thought to leave you with. Horner is now on the market, free to negotiate for next season. Mickey is pushing Red Bull hard, taking risks. What happens in, say, early 2026 if one of the other top teams really stumbles out of the gate with the new rules, and they know there's a proven, demanding winner out there looking for absolute control? Could we see a shock mid-season change? Something to think about.
Definitely keeps things interesting, doesn't it?
It certainly does. And that concludes our analysis today, looking into the news and insights sourced via DirtZone. If you want to stay plugged into F1's inner workings and get more deep dives like this one, make sure you subscribe to the channel named DirtZone. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.